So I always say there's 3 reasons we fail to grow as an entrepreneur. Number 1 is fear. We replace that with knowledge. That's why I wrote books. I got 5 books. But that's what we need. That's why podcasts are important. That's why social media is important. But we're in an information age. So you got to stop paying for information and start paying for implementation.
Just to revisit the entrepreneur coaching versus academia, one thing that I find really interesting is being an entrepreneur and going back to academia is, again, to your point earlier, it's very rigid. They teach it, they don't do it.
Yeah.
And one thing that I appreciate about my position being there as a business owner and just the experiences I have is having the ability to, and we alluded to this earlier with Marcus, is like not live in the echo chamber. It's like take the information, listen to it, process it, and choose to apply it or not apply it.
Sure.
Whereas, say an 18, 19-year-old is taking it and then it's just canon.
Yeah.
And
they're just using everything.
And then versus the coach, where it's like, okay, I probably need to live by this guy because they've lived it.
Yeah.
It's
when coaching gives you discernment, right? And great coaches have the gift of discernment. They have the gift to tell you based on experience and things like that of when to do things. And so as an entrepreneur, especially get an MBA, I have plenty of clients that have MBAs, and they're like, bro, I learned more in your program than I learned in an MBA.
Well, I like to tell people, I'm not getting an MBA, I'm getting an SMU.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. So I always say there's 3 reasons we fail to grow as an entrepreneur. Number 1 is fear. We replace that with knowledge. That's why I wrote books. I got 5 books. But that's what we need. That's why podcasts are important. That's why social media is important. But we're in an information age. So you got to stop paying for information and start paying for implementation. Right? Like way too many people are paying for information. It's not going to cost anybody to watch this, right?
No.
It's free.
You can send us money if you'd like.
Donate, right? But this is information. Stop paying for it. Second side is like pay for implementation, which is what a coach does for you. Number 2 reasons we fail to grow is mindset. So many entrepreneurs make way too many statements. I can't do that. That won't work. I failed at that before. And as entrepreneurs, our job is to make statements. Our job is to ask questions. Because statements close the mind, questions open the mind.
To that point, I'll have to give credit to one of my guys because he called me out maybe a week or 2 ago because I made the statement of like, why can't we do this? Yeah. He's like, Ryan, you can't say it like that. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, we can do that. You've just never asked us to do that.
Yeah.
So, but when you say it like, why can't we? You're assuming that we can't do it.
Yeah.
Well,
it's like
before he gets to number 3, I've become a bit of a skeptic in my old age. Oftentimes, the other part of mindset that entrepreneurs really screw up on is overbelief in themselves, right? Like, if you have to look at 8 houses to get a contract, and you need 2 contracts to get a closing, and it takes 60 days, right? We'll just use that number. If it's the end of a month and you were planning on closing 5 houses next month and you've only written 2 contracts, stop lying to yourself. Like, be willing to look in the mirror and say, I'm missing something. The guy you talked about in California, I'm missing something. What am I missing? And a good coach can pull you out of that funk. So sometimes we talk bad about ourselves, but sometimes we talk too good about ourselves.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're like, oh, I can do this. I can find some deals. And sometimes you just have to eat the frog, swallow that big nasty pill and say, you know what? We are going to have a crappy month next month. What can I do to make it impact my profit a little bit less? And how do I get back on track?
Yeah. And so I always tell people, instead of making statements like we're going to have a crappy month, asking the question, how can I do better? Because with employees, it doesn't affect us as much, but with employees, when we make statements, we close people down. System 60's meeting, where we ramp the process, is about asking questions. You're required to ask, why do we do this 7 times? Why? Because it forces people to answer the question. And when you make a statement, you close people's minds. When you ask a question, you open them up. And that creates innovation. And that's what we have to have. We have to have innovation. So I always tell people in a fun way, never make statements.
What's number 3?
Number 3 is connections. One of the biggest reasons we fail to scale is because we don't have the right connections to help us get to where we need to go. And those connections come in multiple different ways, whether it's money connections or information connections or coaching connections. What a coach can do for you in a really big way. We've worked with 4,000 clients. We know a lot of people.
Yeah.
A lot of people in the industry. We can make good connections.